When we launched Journey to Home, we got a lot of pushback as well because it was based on a program. And at that time, workshops weren't the flavor of the month because of all the negativity and the resistance. So we ended up getting into the Hasidic world instead of the Chabad world.
Right.
Like that's where things just led. There was one guy, he came, he was very influential, and he pushed people to come, and then it just exploded, literally exploded. And we started filling up workshops, and things started moving. And in the process for myself, I was ended up, because I was doing this workshop, having to meet more of myself, having to do more work on myself, because my belief is and based on how the first program was shut down, is if you got to really do serious work on yourself and be able to see yourself and acknowledge who you are and how you show up and give that message over so people hear it. It's not a concept. This is a guy doing work on himself to the degree of which I knew to do work on myself. And at certain points, I had to face it more and more, how deep I needed to go, how much work I needed to do in order to get to the place where I thought, this is me. And then you meet a deeper layer of yourself. You face trauma, or you face different things, and you meet deeper layers. So that ended up perpetuating into this massive following that we had. But I still wasn't feeling full, like this is it. And I was, at the time, I was balancing two businesses. I was in a financial business, and I stayed
the
with
workshops.
that. I ended up actually leaving the place that I worked at, and the courage to go out and leave and start my own thing. And
that came from the workshops.
That came from the workshops. All this confidence happened, ended up paying off all my debt within 1 year. I hit like these targets and bonuses that I was on steroids, and without the drugs, I dropped all the drugs that I was taking before, left all of it. And because I was on those drugs, I wasn't feeling, I realized how disconnected I was. And then feelings just started flowing, just started moving through me. And life became rich. It became more experiential. Like I'm experiencing life rather than going through the motions. I felt a lot like I was really just going through the motions of, this is what I'm supposed to do. Don't talk to anybody about your pain. You're married to this woman. You got 2 adopted kids, and I really treat them as my own. And I got all these kids popping out, and today we have 9 kids, Baruch Hashem.
Oh, beautiful.
And it's just, life became richer. And then as life became richer and I was experiencing more of myself, more challenges came in my life. My mother got sick, and she ended up passing away like 4.5 years ago. And that took me on a serious spin, because she was everything. She was the divine feminine figure that was just there for you. She was just there, although she wasn't vulnerable, which is what I really needed in my life, from her, from my father. And I became disconnected, and I was just going through the motions. I had to say Kaddish for a whole year, and my relationship to God took a back seat again. I was doing everything. I was always connected to doing those things, but I didn't feel it.
Through your journey, the practice of Judaism stayed throughout, right?
Practice was there. Made certain changes about the way I dressed, because I started wearing black and white, and I was going through that process of thinking that I only need to wear black and white, which has a lot to do with thinking that I needed to be like my wife's first husband. So I felt the competition of being this hardcore Chabad Hasidic guy, where I would, am the shaliach figure, and I'm going out there, and this is who I am. And so some of those things, I took a deeper look at them and gravitated more towards expressing myself, who I was before. And it's been a process of strengthening more of those connections throughout those past number of years. But I had a strong resistance to Chabad because of what happened, because of what went down. It just felt like it was so wrong. It was so hurtful.
Yeah, I experienced kind of like a second wind of Call the Shofar when I was involved with Mic Drop, because many people interpret it as like the same. Like the references I got very often was, oh, it's a cult, just like all the chauffeur and stuff like that. So I felt some of the tailwinds of what it certainly wasn't as intense, but I felt some of what you're talking about. It's unpleasant.
Right,
It's particularly
and
unpleasant.
it was so secretive. I remember, and today someone comes in a workshop, we say who is here and what is shared is totally confidential because people don't necessarily want you to know that they're going to a workshop. That was like 10 years ago. It was a real secret. It was like a trade secret. You can't let someone know, like in your community and this insular communities are like very much controlling, especially in the Chassidish world. Like they could come at you and try to burn you to the ground if they find out that you're doing something that would challenge their way of showing up. And just like the healing needs to be done, so we keep it secret. Today, it's a more normalized thing. Like today, if you have a therapist, you're not normal. 10 years ago, if you had a therapist, you're not normal.
Right. Today, if you don't have a therapist, you're not.
Yeah, right. You're not normal for if you don't have a therapist. So,
Right.
so it's become more widespread, and the message is becoming clear that people really need help. And medicating is not help. It's a temporary Band-Aid and necessary for people. But really, there's something.
Most often, it's not. We can say it clearly. Most often, when it's
Yeah.
used, it's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I subscribe to Gabor Mate, and you know he'll tell you that but he's into medication, but it's not a long-term solution.
Yeah.
If I have anxiety, why would I take anti-anxiety? Well, because I want to block out the name of the medication. Anti-anxiety is like I'm working against it. Well, let's talk about why it's there to begin with.
Right. Yeah, oftentimes the symptom is the cure, right? Meaning, if our body heats up and we develop a fever, the problem is not our fever. The problem is the infection, and our body is heating up to fight the infection. So we reduce the fever, but if we don't deal with the infection, sometimes we need to. The body's getting too hot. Okay, so we reduce the fever, but not without. We use that opportunity to address the infection, not to pretend that the problem is the fever, not what the fever is responding to.
And the world
So-
the world's message is, I want the world to look a certain way. That's most of the vibration of the world. And you saw that with COVID also. It's like how many people got vaccinated and didn't know the repercussions of what's going to happen with how it's going to turn out, because they're being told like this is the solution. They're trusting, and you know that medical system, which I experienced from my own mother, like chemotherapy was not effective. And radiation was not effective. That's actually how she passed away. I can't say it's because of the radiation. You can't escape fate. Let's just be clear. You can't escape fate. And I have no regrets on that. But what life said was, okay, she has to have 10 days of radiation because she just got a brain tumor. She got a bunch of brain tumors. And the 10th day was Monday. Wednesday, she passed away. So it's like what were we doing over here? And I saw her deteriorating, and it's a very ineffective process from the track record of it. Not putting it down that it doesn't, prolong the person's life, but it's not actually curing the disease. It's killing all the cells around in order to create an environment where maybe new healthy cells can grow back. But I watched her deteriorate, watched that process.
Right.
And then you watch that just on the basic level of people with anxiety, and they take these pills, and I'm talking from experience because I took antidepressants. There is no emotion there. So
There's no emotion.
no emotion.
Yeah, it just knocks out the emotion.
So I have no emotion. Okay, well, there's an effect of that. I live a less authentic life
Right, you're living in a bubble.
because the emotions are the mirror of my soul. That's what they are. It's a communication. It's a pre-verbal communication. It's a communication without any words. It's the most primal part of us. When a baby is a baby, that's the way they communicate, through emotions. They don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
So if I lose touch with that, I lose touch with my human experience.